At one of my recent online events, a participant asked me an interesting question, which I'm going to quote exactly. How do you help Chinese companies accept Western slowness? The question is interesting because it addresses a fundamental advantage of China in the global market today, which is speed, or sometimes called China speed. But perhaps most importantly, this question is a great case study of inherent biases, misunderstandings, and possible solutions when East and West collaborate with one another. So let's discuss today, what can we learn from comparisons between a fast China and the slow West in East-West leadership? I am Gabor Holch, Intercultural leadership coach, consultant, advisor, trainer with 20 years of experience in China and currently splitting my time between Europe and Asia. If you attended one of my Dragon Suits workshops, online or in person, you already have the statistics about China's speed advantage over the global average and even over the most advanced economies. On average, China delivers at roughly twice the speed in consumer electronics, batteries, fast fashion, and some other related industries. As Chinese electric vehicles enter the European market, many believe that China delivers the same quality, if not better, in a fraction of the traditional lead time of legacy car brands like Volkswagen or BMW. But China is not the only Asian country that beat the West at speed. South Korea became a global industrial power because it can deliver high quality very fast, whether there are small things in question like Samsung mobile phones or enormous ones like entire ocean liners. Such comparisons often lead to a simplistic win-lose narrative about a rising East and a failing West, where BMW engineers spend a year trying to reduce the gap between door panels while China eats their lunch, even in their home market. But as we shall see in the rest of this video, simple stories in business and leadership are often half stories that get laughs and clicks, but do not help make better decisions. We'll see that comparing Chinese and Western speed is not like comparing mobile phone processors or operating systems that do essentially the same job, but one of them is faster than the other. It is more like comparing modes of transport that differ in speed, but also in many other ways. If you want to get, for example, from one place to another in a crowded city, what are the fastest ways to go? One would be a fast motorbike, let's say a Ducati. Another would be to fly your own helicopter. Simple, right? Ducatis and helicopters are better than cars, buses, or bicycles. But also, notice the exact wording of the question. How do you help Chinese companies accept Western slowness? Notice how the question itself rests on a few core assumptions. If we were at the workshop right now, we would write the question on a flip chart and start underlining words. In this case, I would definitely underline the words accept and slowness. Both these words carry a certain amount of bias that can make it harder not only to collaborate across cultures, but even to discover what the problem is. By the way, if you like the video so far or you like my previous videos, don't forget to click like and subscribe so that you can catch my next video as well. Moving on. The fact that the question uses words like accept and slowness suggests a couple of things which I would call assumptions or even biases of the speaker. Let's see a couple of those suggested assumptions or biases. The first is that Western speed is the problem and China is the solution. The second is that the Chinese side has no other option but to accept that Westerners cannot dictate a higher pace. This is why self-awareness is so important in intercultural business. The way you ask the question determines to a large extent the responses you get. If you have ever been in a diverse work environment, you can imagine reactions on the Western side if this question sounds out at an actual East-West leadership workshop, or even a meeting within a diverse team where there are people from East and West. People can feel, often unconsciously when they are being judged and immediately become defensive and push back. So, how to avoid a bad start like this when you work between East and West and try to help others to do so. You can, for instance, start with an awareness question, what we call an awareness question at the workshop. Is faster speed necessarily what you want? Now, if the difference between two solutions is only speed and the quality, safety and everything else is the same, of course you want higher speed. But most of the time, that is not so simple. If you want to get to a meeting in a crowded city, a Ducati is much faster than a taxi. But if you ride a motorcycle, you are exposed to the weather, whether it's heavy rain in London or tropical heat in Singapore. You cannot carry too much stuff with you. The outfit you wear must suit a Ducati lifestyle, and you must give up any kind of hairdo or accessory that doesn't fit under a safety helmet. Never mind, remember our example. You still have your helicopter, 2 or 3 times faster than a Ducati. But of course, traveling in a helicopter is also 50 times more expensive than riding a Ducati. You may not be able to land near your destination, and in some cities you are not even allowed to fly a private helicopter at all, including most Chinese cities, by the way. In other words, as I write in Dragon Suit, speed is a costly commodity. If you want to support that with reliable data, check statistics on labor productivity. Looking at numbers from sources like the International Labour Organization, a United Nations body, you will see that although China clearly beats the West on speed, in terms of productivity, which is basically the economic value created in 1 hour of work per person, the West is at the top of the chart, while to find China, you must scroll down to the bottom third of the chart near countries like Brazil, Mongolia, or Albania. Why is that? Because fast work cultures tend to deliver fast, but also course correct in the middle of processes, undo and redo many tasks, and waste resources, including human resources, before they deliver. If you ever worked with Chinese teams, you know that they tend to assign multiple times the number of people to a task compared to a Western firm, and plan faster, but also replan more often than Western firms. Great for speed, but much heavier on resources. That doesn't mean that Western methods are superior. Just like my remarks at the beginning of the video didn't mean that China's speed was superior to the West. Remember, the point of intercultural skills is not to win, but to bring together diverse teams and work together more effectively. So, when someone asks you, how do you help Chinese companies to accept Western slowness? And assuming that the Western side is indeed slower than the Chinese colleagues, what would be your recommendation? Let me give you 10 seconds to consider that. Well, first of all, whether the Chinese side should accept a slower Western pace should be based on data, not gut-level judgment. If the West is slow and a diverse team, including Chinese colleagues, can deliver the same quality at China's speed, the Chinese side must show a trick or two to the Western colleagues. This is what is happening in fast fashion today, where Chinese firms redefine an entire industry based on speed in the first place. If the West is slow because they work on a risky and more detail-orientated aspect of the business, the Chinese side must be able to plan their work according to the hybrid speed, otherwise the productivity of the entire team and process is in danger. This is typical in sectors where Westerners contribute the precision parts of the entire product or service, like ASML in semiconductors, Rolls-Royce in aviation, or Leica in mobile phones, including Chinese branded mobile phones. If the West is not really slower, just they use better planning and fewer corrections later. Perhaps the Chinese side can adopt some of those practices. This is happening in the automotive and pharmaceutical industries, where Chinese firms are champions of speed and volume, but few of them meet the Western quality standards. Speaking of practical applications, let's see today's tooltip. Although not specifically an intercultural tool, William Urey's positive no methodology is a brilliant tool for conversations where you must convince the other side to accept a mutually helpful course of action that they initially don't really like. The book where he details this method, entitled The Power of a Positive No, is short and easy. It's an afternoon's reading, really, and helped me not only in my own communication and negotiation practices, but also in training others to negotiate and lead across cultures. I will leave the book link in the show notes. I hope today's video was useful and will help you work, lead, and help others collaborate across cultures, and that we can read your opinion, stories, and questions in the comments. I will leave links where you can contact me after you watch this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that YouTube reminds you of my next videos. Until then, find me online and drop me a line.